So, one of the big ideas that we're covering today is how do we calculate either the speed, the distance, or the time that an object has traveled while they've been in motion? We can use the equation speed equals distance divided by time to help us find speed rather easily. If you look in the middle part of this pink diagram, you can see that equation. But we can use some algebra to manipulate that equation to figure out an equation we can use to calculate the time an object has traveled or the distance that that object has traveled. Now, here's the cool thing. There's only three variables in this equation, right? Speed, distance, and time. And we can set them up in a triangle that looks like this one on the left. We can put speed on the bottom right-hand side, and then distance in the top of the triangle, and then time on the left-hand side. The way that you read this triangle is you have to remember that this line that cuts the triangle in half represents division, and this line that separates speed and time represents multiplication. Since we're doing this virtually, I had to find a diagram that had hands like in it already. So let's scoot over to these triangles here. Let's say we're trying to solve a problem that requires us to figure out how much time an object has been in motion. I'm going to cover my hand over the time variable, and that leaves distance and speed. So what is the final equation? Remember that middle line there represents divide. So my final equation, time equals distance divided by speed. Let's say I was trying to find an equation that helps me determine the speed. This one we already know, but just for the sake of using the triangle, I put my hand over the speed variable. That means that my other variables left are distance and time. My equation becomes speed equals distance divided by time. For those two, you have to remember to read this triangle from top to bottom. So the top variable always being distance divided by, and then whatever the bottom variable is. If we were trying to find an equation to help us calculate the distance, again, I put my hand over the D for distance. That leaves me with time times, remember that line there represents times, speed. So distance equals time times speed. So if you want to just use the triangle because that makes a lot of sense to you, that's good. If you are a memorization person and you just want to memorize each of these three equations and just know them, you could do that too. Either way is totally fine, but you're going to be using those equations to solve some of the problems in the upcoming slides.